Guy on Indy presents the podcast. Today's topic, Malcolm X. Today's special guest, Dr. David Polizzi. Today's podcast is sponsored by Indy Filmmakers Forum at yahoo.com. Are you interested in professional production and live in the Midwest? Then contact Indy Filmmakers Forum at yahoo.com, the premier film networking group in the Midwest. Okay, welcome back again. We are here with Dr. David Polizzi discussing his book and Malcolm X. Okay, now we are on Chapter 6, Minister Malcolm. Thank you, David. Minister Malcolm and the Nation of Islam. David, please tell us a little bit of Malcolm's X and this period of his life.
Well, like you were saying, I think in the last segment, how Malcolm is now almost proselytizing, right? He's in the prison and now he's out. And his considerable intellect and skill is now put to work to build the nation.
He worked briefly for like a furniture store, or he worked for his brother, but then became to work full-time for the Nation of Islam shortly after, like within a year or so.
Well, it becomes clear that he is magnetic and that he is powerful and persuasive. And he is the voice that didn't exist in the nation to that level.
Right.
And so he goes about at breakneck speed, spreading the nation all over the country. Probably not that effective in the South, as you would imagine at that time, but certainly in the Midwest. I mean, he was very prominent actually in my hometown of Rochester, New York. The nation was prominent there. And actually on the night that Malcolm was murdered, that evening, there was a mosque in Rochester that was bombed.
Oh, wow.
Right. And so Malcolm now is probably much to the fear of people like J. Edgar Hoover and others, is now building a formidable community with the Nation of Islam.
Yeah, and he's located in Harlem, Mosque number 7.
Mosque number 7, yes, indeed. Yep.
And he's appointed to that like when he's in his 20s, or how old is he when he...
Oh, that, off the top of my head, I just don't remember.
But he's a young man. He's making some great strides.
He's murdered as a young man.
Yeah, he's murdered, 38, 39?
39, right.
Wow, that's amazing. Amazing. When you initially told me about the autobiography of Malcolm X, I thought he misheard you because I didn't think he lived old enough to have a autobiography, So, okay, so please tell us a little bit of this period in his life. And talk about Heidegger's concept of the other and averageness. When he becomes involved in the Nation of Islam, there's a new other, all these black Muslims that he is more like than not like.
Yeah, I mean, Heidegger makes the point that being in the world is drawn to those that think more like it than not. So for Heidegger, others are not in somehow juxtaposed to me. Others in this case for Heidegger are those that are closest in temperament and understanding than I am.
Okay.
And
the other followers of Elijah Muhammad would be his new others now.
Absolutely. And so he's in this context where blackness is praised, where it resists the toxic effects of anti-black racism and some of the kind of side consequences that all that entails. And he's also around people that kind of have the same ideas. And so it becomes an extension maybe of the early Garveyite upbringing, but it's a context that now is in place, and now he's an adult, and there's obviously different kinds of advantages with that. It's a community that can push back, as it does, against racism in ways that even that the Garvey movement could not. And that's where they're also starting to, there's some controversy where they have, they're clandestinely meeting with the Ku Klux Klan. They're talking about separation. And even, with the rhetoric of separation, it's not that outlandish, simply because they understood quite well that integration did not mean equality. Integration meant being the janitor at a bank.
Right.
You know, if you were a principal of a black school, you were not going to be the principal of a mixed ethnicity school.
Gotcha.
And it actually, I mean, maybe this is being overly academic in a sense, but we have to keep in mind that the notion of race is a social construction.
Mm-hmm.
There is no construct of race that has any significant scientific meaning at all.
Really? Wow.
Well, yeah, because humans as a race share 99...
We're genetically identical almost.
99% of the same genetic material.
Yeah.
And if you really want to be technical, if we're going to use that criteria, most of that genetic material comes from what now is Africa.
Yeah.
Long walk to Europe. And there's Neanderthal, small percentages of that are exclusively European.
Danisan, there's a new one, a species they found. There apparently was 6 different species of human-like apes alive at one time, and we're the last ones left.
Right, exactly. And we're apes.
And we're killing each other, too. So
you know, we are great apes, really, right?
Yeah.
And we say, are we the most intelligent ones? Yeah, that's that racism.
I don't know. Dolphins are pretty smart. They're not apes, but they're smart.
So, yeah, the idea of race is scientifically illogical.
Yeah.
And it's probably was used in part because, like we were talking about earlier, to be able to do some of the horrific things that have been done, you know, whether it's indigenous folks, whether it was African slaves, whether it was women, right?
Yeah.
You have to have a logical structure that justifies the treatment.
Mm-hmm.
And so you need to construct the target of that vitriol in such a way that tries to catch them in it, you know, and kind of hold them almost like a net. And so you create our race. I mean, and you can even see if you look back in research where somehow Egypt isn't part of Africa. Even though that's North Africa.
Right.
And there would have been black pharaohs as well.
Right.
And there were other black civilizations in Africa south.
Yeah.
That often don't get discussed either.
Yeah. Western history, focus on Western history. It negates a lot of important history in the past. I was watching, I've seen something on Facebook that said Newton and all these, Copernicus, all these scientific names. And then there's all these Indians that I've never heard of. And they said they're just as important. They had such significant inputs in science and mathematics that they belong right aside Newton. But we don't know them because it's not English. It's hard to learn foreign names. So.
And the Egyptians were doing all kinds of things probably 1,000 years before the Greeks.
Yeah, yeah. Well, they say the Pythagoras theorem, it was actually 1,500 years before in, where was it, Babylonian, that actually had figured out pi and those concepts. Okay, well, let's talk about one thing I think is very important. We talked about the name of the father. When he joins the Nation of Islam, he takes on Malcolm X, which we all know him for. X meaning ex-Christian, X...
No.
No?
It comes from because it's an algebraic term.
Oh, is it? Okay.
X reflects the unknown.
The unknown, okay.
Because the idea, right, that in this case, the name of the father for African Americans would be, not in every single case, but for the most part, the slave name.
Right.
So the slave name is not the identity of that person. It's the imposed name. And so the idea of the X was to remove the slave identity and to try to then to determine your true identity. And there was a big issue with that. Like when Malcolm was being ostracized, he was very close to, at that time, Cassius Clay, who was soon going to be Muhammad Ali.
Right.
And Malcolm mentions that as soon as he was given a holy name, he knew it was over, that he was going to lose his friendship with Muhammad Ali.
Right. This was the same time he was distanced from the Nation of Islam.
Because he was
he was excommunicated.
And he was in trouble when he goes to the Liston Muhammad Ali fight.
Yeah.
And I believe the next day he announces that he's no longer Cassius Clay, that he's now Muhammad Ali. And that's an important name in Islam.
Yeah. And I think it's interesting to note Cassius Clay was a famous abolitionist. So, so there's the thing that the name of the father, I see how important it was for Muhammad Ali to be known as himself as he wanted to be known. But let's not forget the things that came before. Those are important too.
But the name, for the most part, you would have been named after
a slave.
After the master.
After the master, right. Okay. Thank you for listening. Once again, as always, Guy and Indy, you're invited to listen in. Next chapter 7. After the Nation, from Malcolm X to Malcolm L. Shabazz. Hi, it's Guy and Indy. I'm here to sing Strangers by the Kinks. Where you going to? I don't mind. Killed my world and I killed my time. Where am I going to? What will I see? See many people coming after me. Where am I going to? I don't mind. Live too long, I'm afraid I'll die. I will follow you wherever you go. If your open hand is offered to me, strangers on this road we are on. We are not two, we are one. Strangers on this road we are on. We are not two, we are one.